Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here. We've got a little bit of a change-up for you this week. No Manny Lagos, some scheduling issues over the past couple days, but we've got a regular guest in John Marthaler. He is back. John, how we doing?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Good, good. Can't complain myself. And then a return for Kyle Hayward. He's filled in as the host of this podcast in the past. Writes for the club on the website. Kyle, how we doing today as a guest on the episode this time?
Less stress this time. Your job is too hard for me.
Oh, it's fun. I love the host gig. It's fun. I just get to pepper you guys with the questions and not have to answer them myself. So I appreciate it. Looking forward to having you guys on. It's going to be fun. We've got plenty to talk about, so let's jump right into it. So with so much to talk about, opening weekend or another second weekend of soccer across Major League Soccer. What were the results and score lines that stuck out to you guys? I've got a couple of my own, but I want to start with you, Kyle.
I think the first one I thought of was LA versus Vancouver. I thought it was intriguing that the defending champs, I think even after last night, three games, 3 losses. Looks like some of those injuries and Ricky Puig, my favorite player in the league, being out, it's a little bit too much for him.
Ricky Puig, a fellow big-headed guy like John and myself.
Oh, yes, naturally.
Your heart's got to go out for Galaxy fans. It's been almost 3 games since they won a trophy, and the league hasn't made up a rule for them in like 5-6 years. It's just the suffering is the word that you just associate with them.
I don't know what it is, John, but I've got a little soft spot for him. I know I shouldn't.
No,
but
stop that.
But I do.
Blacken your heart.
I think, watching that Vancouver game against LA Galaxy had me questioning. I know we came into this season wondering if Vancouver were going to drop because of all the changes they had or the losses they had in the offseason and then getting rid of Andy Sartini, new head coach. And clearly they've come out firing this season. Are Vancouver better than we thought they were, Kyle?
I feel like...
Or is it just too early to tell?
Too early to tell for sure. I feel like they've been better than they've shown for the last couple of years. Like they've had all the pieces there. They just never kind of put it all together. I think we're going to keep seeing them put it together on isolated games, and then they'll go through a stretch where we don't talk about them for like 10 games in the season.
John?
Vancouver's funny because, I mean, they're funny right now because they're obviously started okay, and getting a draw at home with Monterrey is not a bad thing. But for some reason, I keep getting distracted by the fact there's like 500 people at their games. Like they're getting outdrawn by Canadian Premier League teams right now. And I can't figure out what's going on. If anyone knows what's happening in Vancouver, write in to Kyle or Jonathan and tell them what's going on. Because I can't figure it out myself.
Send your messages to us, just not John, who's the one asking.
Not me.
He doesn't want
not me. I want to hear. I'll believe it if it's coming from Jonathan or Kyle. That's the thing. If this message is passed along third hand, I'll believe it. Second hand, not sure. I'm not sure I can deal with that.
Other results from the weekend that stuck out. Let's get the Messi one out of the way because I know not a whole lot of people want to talk Messi as long as we did last week. 4-1 Inter Miami without Messi, though. I think that's probably the more surprising part is that they go on the road without Messi, who's apparently dealing with some muscle issues, according to Javier Mascherano. So we'll see how that works out for them. But 4-1 Miami in Sunday Night Soccer get their first win of the season now on 4 points to start the year, John.
Yeah, it was sort of a real throwback game in the sense that it felt like another era of MLS because you had Luis Suarez, huge name, in the middle, and then a couple guys scoring goals for Miami where you're like, unless you're an MLS sicko, you're like, I've never heard of this guy before. I don't know anybody except Suarez on this team. And that was, for so long, it was like David Villa and a cast of thousands. And... that was NYCFC, or whatever. Just there were so many years like that. It just felt like a real throwback, and it was a Sunday afternoon game, and the stands were filled with very disappointed looking people in pink jerseys, and it was a whole different experience.
Kyle?
It was Houston's bad. Like I'm prepared to eat my words later, but like I was pleasantly surprised to see that Nico Lodero was there. I did miss that completely, but it just was uninspiring to say the least. And the sad fans in the crowd were just too much, too depressing. I couldn't get through the
Yeah,
whole.
It's
a
gonna.
bad day. Just a whole bad vibe for Houston.
I'm kind of feeling the same way as you, Kyle, about Houston. It's just, excuse me, it's kind of sad because of how well they played last year and what they looked like last year, and then all of a sudden they sell a couple guys, a couple key players, they move on from a couple guys, including Hector Herrera, and all of a sudden they just do not. They look like a shell of what they used to, and it's gonna be. It feels like it's gonna be a rough season until they can get some big money signings in there in the off season or in the summer maybe. Other notes across the league: 5 teams have 6 points through match day 2. LAFC, Vancouver, as we already talked about, and San Jose. No, yeah, San Jose is the only teams with 6 points in the Western Conference. Columbus, Philly have 6 in the East. Which one of those teams surprises you the most that they have 6 points through the first 2 weeks, John?
I want to say San Jose, but Bruce Arena will just appear and just scream at me. I think the success of the San Jose Earthquake so far is a testament to the power of screaming, the power of just being bitter and yelling. It's irrepressible. It turns the world. The world turns on bitterness, and Bruce Arena is proving that in San Jose.
Turns on
Also, the
bitterness
fact that
go ahead.
every game they play is against the team that played 2 days ago in the Champions Cup or whatever. But still,
Bitterness and changing your entire roster in the offseason.
yeah, that's right. Getting better players does help too. There is that.
It's weird how that works, Kyle.
Hey, I mean, if you got to change everybody, get the people you had at the last place. If it worked there, it'll work here, right?
Right. Columbus, as we said, 6 points on the season, though I know you're sad about this, Kyle. They did lose last night, 3-0 to LAFC in CONCACAF Champions Cup action. What happened? LAFC just running roughshod over Columbus the other night.
I tried to be the voice of reason for Crew fans and say, "Oh, hey, Cucho's gone. We still got everything we need." And then a game like this just kind of makes me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. Denny Bouanga is
The
frustrated.
crew are one Denis Bouanga short of beating LAFC because man, he just ate them alive.
Oh gosh, it was rough.
Yeah, absolutely. It was rough for Columbus fans to see that because considering the success they've had over LAFC in finals in recent year and just getting run out of the building. Other notes around the league: Columbus, a big 2-0 win over Atlanta. Wilfred Zaha getting his first goal for Charlotte, also assisting on the other. So him having a big day in his Charlotte debut. Forsberg with probably the goal of the week, I would assume, Kyle. What an incredible, just bending, curling shot around the goalkeeper for that one, or for the New York Red Bulls in that one.
Oh yeah, that made me want to get outside and start playing. And then I saw the snow and remembered I couldn't. But like, I don't know what I expected from him when he came over. I think I was kind of on the side of like, this is going to be one of those European transplants that doesn't work out. And the more he plays and the more he's actually in there, the more he's making a difference and frustrating me even more. Uh, like when he knocked the Crew out of last year's playoffs. But yeah, definitely goal of the week for me.
So which one's more incredible? Because I see you put this in the notes. Which one's more incredible, that goal or Joe Willis's mustache? Because
Got to be
it's
the
in the
must.
notes, so we got to bring it up on the show.
Oh yeah, that's why I put it in there. I was watching and I was like, I didn't realize, I didn't respect his game. I didn't know the mustache was that amazing until I saw it in that highlight when he's getting scored on. But sorry, Joe
This
Willis, your mustache is amazing.
this is Kyle's chance to apologize to Joe Willis. I didn't know enough about your game, Joe Willis.
FC Dallas come back from 2-0 down to tie 3-3. Peter Musa looking sharp. Luciano Costa looking sharp as well already in early performances for FC Dallas. That's a team that I'm pleasantly surprised by. I didn't think it would gel as well as it has. And I mean, coming back from 2-0 down is no easy feat, and they do it, and they look like they've got some attacking threat this season, John.
I I was annoyed that there were 6 goals in that game, and for Minnesota, there's been 2 goals in their games. I just want to send a shout out to anybody that covers St. Louis City
Oh,
because they
goodness.
haven't had a goal yet this season in either of their games, and
And
I
they've
just
allowed one
assume
shot on goal through 2 games as well. So
really
there's
is that
not
right?
yeah.
So if you're writing about St. Louis City SC, how's your drinking problem going? That's my question.
I think that is incredible that they haven't scored yet, and they've only allowed one shot on target the entire 120 minutes they've played so far, or 180 minutes they've played so far, Kyle.
It's a shame. It really sorry, I know you wanted Kyle. It's ever since teams stopped passing the ball directly to Joe Klaus, they've really had trouble scoring offense, getting any sort of offense together. It was like halfway through their first season, they stopped kicking. What do we do? Don't they? What
We're not getting
they
the ball
just
from
pass
the
it?
other team in
Yeah.
easy spots.
Joe Klaus isn't getting the service from the other team's defense that he was in the first half of the season.
Yeah, as they're adjusting to the other team not working in their attacking system,
Yeah.
it's going to be a rough couple of years, but they'll figure it out.
What do we think of San Diego so far through 2 games, getting the big win at LA Galaxy, holding them to a clean sheet, and then, as we said, holding St. Louis to a clean sheet in their home opener? What do we think of San Diego and what they've been able to do in their first 2 games of their inaugural season, Kyle?
I think it's a lot of fun to see a new team do well, but I'm also jaded by St. Louis uh, doing as well as they did. I think it's the momentum's going to carry them for a little bit, and then I hope reality catches up, and maybe they're fighting around the edge for the wild card. I've always been a fan of Chucky Lozano, so wish him the best. But besides that, I'm okay if they struggle a little bit.
John seems to be on the new team struggling bus from his head shakes.
Honestly, the first game, I was like, good for San Diego. And then, they had minor success. They got a draw in the second game. And already I was like, man, I'm tired of San Diego. Why do we got to hear so much about San Diego? My grumpiness with expansion team success, it used to be longer, and then there were like the Vegas Golden Knights in hockey making the Stanley Cup Finals, and then it really shortened after that, and then St. Louis did well, and it shortened even further, so now it's down to exactly 90 minutes where I'm like, good for those guys. And after that first 90 minutes, man, hope they lose every game.
They get one.
How dare they? They should have to suffer.
They get one game from you, and then you go all Minnesota sports fan on them.
Well, I can't help it. It's too ingrained now.
Kyle, you haven't lived here long enough to understand the Minnesota sports fan culture and how we want everyone to fail and struggle because we've lacked complete and utter dominance for such a long time that whenever we see a new team come in and have success, it's like, how do you get to skip the line? Why do you get to skip the line?
I don't see why anybody else should be happy.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm getting caught up to speed on that.
We'll catch you up by the end of this episode.
Poor Kyle. Sure. such a nice, mild-mannered guy, and we're like, no, hate. Start the hate. Let it flow through you. Blacken your heart.
Yeah, that was in what, the first 5 minutes of this?
That was in the first 5 minutes. It's only going to get worse from here.
We'll catch you up. You'll get there. I mean, you'll go from being the guy in the social media booth during the games, who's the one standing up and cheering in the middle of everybody while everybody's typing away and making their graphics, to now being the guy who's also just typing away and making their graphics instead of cheering and being the excited one in that booth. I've noticed it a couple times.
I figured, I'd try to keep it down as much as I can, but
we'll be sitting right behind you and saying things like, all right, are you happy for them that they did well? Kyle's like, yeah, I am happy for them. No, you hate them. You're envious of them. You want them to suffer.
For anybody who doesn't know, taking you behind the curtain here, the social media team, along with Kyle, they sit in one of the booths up in the press box, which is right beside the radio booth. And on the other side of him, 2 windows down, is John Marthaler and the rest of the press corps. So we'll see him, and he'll be the one jumping up and cheering in big moments. The one person in that booth that we can actually see. I don't know. There's other people further back in the booth that may or may not be cheering. But from what I've noticed, that you're the most. I'm
definitely the most animated.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Animated among the crew, and we'll take that away from you. You'll have that ripped out of you by the end of this episode. So
let me into the social media booth. I got some words for everybody.
Our next home game, John, he's going to look over at each of us on either side, and he's going to be the one cheering, and he's going to have to tone it down. He's like, oh man, they're judging me now. But I'm also the one in the radio broadcast when we score, just losing my mind. So I can't really can't really comment too much about Kyle's actions during the game. So let's jump right into it. Enough of banter here. Let's jump right into the 1-0 win over Montreal. General thoughts on this match. A 1-0 win, the home opener win for the Loons, their first since 2018. Get a win over Montreal on Saturday. Kyle, I'll start with you.
we kept making a bunch of jokes in the booth about how Montreal failed to make an impact.
It's a good one.
Just love that for the MLS sickos. Are you an MLS sicko if you know Montreal Impact, or is that a good, big
That's
enough reference?
then you're a USL First Division sicko.
Okay, okay. Well, I like that even more. They were just, I was impressed in game one when they took on Atlanta 3-2. Looked like they could have come out of that one with at least a draw. So I thought they'd bring it to us at Allianz, but they were just kind of, I guess, waiting for us to make a mistake, and we just didn't. Or like, the Loons were super compact, super organized. Montreal didn't look like they had any ideas. And what was it, less than point 0.2 expected goals for them.
Yeah.
Just super blunt up top.
Yeah. John, general thoughts on a 1-0 win for the Loons?
I mean, I think some of it was the effect of playing a game in 20-degree weather because they're just you sort of forget when you're sitting up in the press box like me and it's warm and you forget what it's like. But there's never really been a good game of soccer where you're like, wow, that was a well-played game in March in 20-degree weather. The passing in that game was extraordinary as the ball's bumping along over the frozen pitch. It's not frozen anymore. They have heat. I don't want to impugn anybody on the grounds crew or anything like that, but it's not a good environment to play soccer. So it really seemed like there were periods, especially sort of midway through the second half, where it was almost like a weird game of kick the can was going on. Like all 11 Montreal players were in this half and all 11 Minnesota players were in this half, and the ball was just sitting on the center spot and the teams were just glowering at each other going, I dare you to kick it. We're not going to kick it. You going to kick it? I'm not going to kick it. Who wants to kick it? It was just it was sort of a weird, it was not a game that anybody's going to put on the highlight reel and be like, all right, come on out. Come on out to the game, everybody. We'll watch these two teams try to figure out who's going to kick the ball down the field.
Yeah, and even the goal kind of felt like that too, where yes, it's great, absolute great timing from Yeboah to be the first one to move while Montreal's ball watching, but the ball kind of just like takes a weird roll off his leg into the back of the net. He didn't get a clean strike at it, and it kind of felt like that. It was a little bit sloppy, a little bit. You could tell that the cold was certainly having pardon my word, no pun intended here, impact on the game. And that's just how it ended up. Loons getting a 1-0 win. Though I when I'm thinking about this match, I go back to something head coach Eric Ramsey said to us in our pre-match interview on the broadcast, was that the way Montreal likes to play, they like to be open and play a little bit more chaotic. Minnesota absolutely does not like that. They want things more controlled. And that was their challenge for the game, was to keep things controlled. And I think when you look back at that, they did a very good job of that, limiting Montreal's chances. Sure, they had 63% of the possession, but as you pointed out, Kyle, just what, 0.2 XG expected goals. They had no shots on target. It was really a good job of controlling a match that controlling a team that usually wants to play more open, wide, and chaotic than Minnesota's more willing to do, Kyle.
Yeah, definitely. That's you hit it on the head there. I don't know how much I could add. It's like sometimes it gets frustrating to watch a team that prefers to counter when they're really good at it, because that means a lot of the time they're just sitting there and you're like, oh, do something, go forward, do something. I want you to do something, keep the ball. But like Minnesota United is built to look for those opportunities to counter well and get something out of it, and play with purpose, as Coach Ramsey says a lot. And I guess maybe Pep Guardiola's ruined me. I want to see everybody keep the ball, pass it a million times, and then like just walk it into the goal. And instead, he's doing something that works, and I have to be patient. And I'm not always that patient.
What, you're
If I'm
saying
not
people in society aren't patient today? No, never.
If
John?
I'm not literally hypnotized by the beauty, then get out of here with that. Don't want to see it.
Nope, don't want it. If there's not 100 passes before the goal.
I want a light to shine down directly from the game into my brain, and I'll wake up a day later feeling a sense of warmth and light that I've never felt before. If it doesn't do that, then I don't want it.
So a couple things off this match. I think the standout for me, once again, another one of the standouts for me this week was Morris Duggan. I think, was it FBRF had him at 10 clearances. He had 11 last week. He has 21 total in his first two games, leads the entire league in clearances. Just another standout performance. And clearly, John is making, I would imagine, making the coaching staff rethink who they have as penciled in as starters on that back line.
It's kind of funny because leading into week one, everyone just sort of assumed, well, Jefferson Diaz played there down the stretch last season. Jefferson Diaz will play there. Well, he can't play week one, of course, because he's suspended. But as soon as Jefferson Diaz is available, he'll definitely play left back. And throughout the preseason, Ramsey, whenever he's talking about Duggan or whoever's going to play left back, he's fairly conspicuously not included Jefferson Diaz in the group of guys that he's referring to as potential left backs. Now they brought in an under 22 left back and Nicholas Romero, who's also a left footed guy that can play over there. But right now, Morris Duggan is the guy. And I think it's too much to say that he's cinched the spot or anything because he's played 2 games and he's 24 years old and they're going to be bad games for him. But certainly over the first 2 games, it's not the matter of going, boy, Minnesota's just got to survive until they can get somebody back in at left center back that's not Morris Duggan. It's more like, well, here's an option. Here's a competition. Here's a guy that has shown that he can be solid over a couple of games, and now it seems like they got a lot of options at left center back. Even aside from Jefferson Diaz, they've got Morris Duggan, they've got Nicholas Romero, Devin Padelford's still there, so.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see his development. Kyle, I know you wrote about him over on the team's website. What has been your takeaways from Duggan's first 2 games here?
Yeah, he's taken all the steps that I guess it's a unique story of his, and he's coming into this with little professional experience, but he's doing it alongside Michael Boxall, who has probably the most professional experience on the entire roster, and I think that's an ideal situation for him. And he's talked to me about instead of feeling those nerves, he kind of turns that into, oh, I'm excited for this chance. His mental, I don't know, his mental approach to the game has, I think, made a big difference for him. And you can see it out there. He looks calm, he looks comfortable, and he listens to the leaders around him. So I think he's going to do the job that they need him to, as long as he's getting called up.
Yeah, it helps that he's got a leader like Michael Boxall alongside him right there in the middle, and Boxy's having another outstanding start to his season. Even at the age of 36, when many people thought you'd start to see a dip, and clearly through the first 2 games, not having that, he's been explosive from that center back spot, which is this thing I didn't expect to see. Him making those long gallivanting runs right up the middle, which he did time and time again against Montreal. It really harkened back to when when the Loons played Matias Almeida's San Jose side, I think, and it would just go running right through the middle all the way up to goal because no one was man marking him, John. It really, when I was watching that happen time and time again on Saturday at Allianz Field, I'm just like, are we playing San Jose all of a sudden? Are we going back to 2001 or 2021 San Jose all of a sudden?
There's just nothing more delightful than watching a center back carry the ball down the middle of the field into the other team's half. It's exactly like when a lineman picks up a kickoff in like the squib kick. You don't do it anymore, but if a lineman catches a kickoff like a squib kick and starts running down the field, it's like nobody's turning away. Everybody's excited when a lineman's carrying the ball. And it's the same with the center back carrying the ball over the halfway line somehow and making a pass as if he's an attacking midfielder. Genuine joy throughout the crowd.
When he's trying to connect the one touch passes between the players, just the give and goes. I don't want to say hilarious, but it's like something that you don't expect to see out of 36-year-old Michael Boxall at this point in his career, and he's doing it, and it's working, and he's just pulling defenders out, which you don't. Again, all this stuff is not something you would associate with Michael Boxall this season, and he's done it a couple times. He did it a couple of times on Saturday. I don't know how much we expect to see it for the rest of the season, but as John said, Kyle, genuine joy to see Michael Boxall pull that out of his bag again.
Oh, yeah. And I noticed whenever defenders, speaking as a former defender myself, whenever we get up that high, it's either you should take the shot and you make a pass, or you should make a pass and you shoot it out of the stadium.
Yeah.
I don't think he did it quite as badly as I used to. His was at least more fun to watch. Mine would be I'd get exhausted after I tried to do like a step over or something, and then I blasted into the stands. But he's definitely been effective this year, I'd say.
Yeah. And those long throws really are starting to pay dividends. We saw it last season between Padelford and Boxall executing those long throws. Those, I guess, kind of set pieces, if you will, have really become effective for Minnesota, and they led to the goal on Saturday, Kyle.
Yeah, that's if you've got somebody on your team that can do that, it's a huge benefit. Like a throw in is normally just get it back in quick, but if you can set up and you've trained at that and you've practiced that, just a flick on, one flick on like we saw, and then somebody get a, whether it's a good touch or not, just get it into dangerous areas. People don't know how to handle that.
At Target, we're ready to cheer with the hometown fans and gear you up for an epic season. Whether watching from the stands or your living room, score big on game day with everything you need for the win. We're here to be your home field advantage at Target and Target.com.
Yeah, absolutely. As we mentioned, Kelvin Yeboah scoring the game winner. Not the cleanest of game winners, but he'll take it. You'll take every goal you can get. And Kelvin Yeboah, constant threat once again, just being just a nuisance for Montreal's defense, just like he was in LAFC's defense for the first half anyways. Kelvin Yeboah, one goal so far, but has been an absolute menace and showing exactly why people were as hyped up about him as they were coming into the season, John.
You know, it's funny. I saw somebody on social media that suggested that Yeboah faked. It looked like a not clean goal, but they suggested that he actually faked like he was going to go with the left to freeze the keeper and then just poked it in with his right. And I don't know if that's true, and I didn't get a chance to ask Yeboah that. If he did do that, amazing move. It seems like we might be giving him too much credit for missing with his left and kicking with his right, but still, if he did do that, and I'm not saying he didn't do that, if he did do that, actually kind of an amazing finish, made the goalkeeper look dumb. I think everything right now that Minnesota is doing is focused on getting chances for the forwards, and so a lot is depending on whether Oluwaseyi and Yeboah can finish. And the guys that come in as, for Oluwaseyi and Yeboah if he doesn't play 90 minutes, whether that's Sangbin Jong or whoever, it's going to depend on their finishing skills right now because that's the way the Loons are set up. So it's an interesting thing to watch.
When I know a big topic of the conversation, or one of the topics of conversation coming out of this game, was just that through two games, there's been just one goal, and the pairing of this two striker system with Kelvin Yeboah and Tani Oluwaseyi. Again, it's early, so I don't want to label this a concern or not, or what have you, as we like to do in media and overreact already.
Yep.
Do you
Small sample size overreaction is what we do. It's our stock in trade.
Absolutely
We're ready.
is.
We're doing it right now. Here we go.
All right, well then, John, are you concerned about what you've seen through the first two games of Tani Oluwaseyi and Kelvin Yeboah's pairing up top?
You know, Ramsey in the post-game press conference on Saturday referred to it as teething problems, which I think is sort of an apt way of putting it. It's just figuring out. Both of those guys have been in situations over the past year where when they have the ball, when they are going for goal, when the ball's gone over the top, whether they're 1-on-2 or 1-on-1, the only decision they have to make is, where am I going? And you saw both of them. It looked to me like for both of them, there's that sort of doubt that gets planted in your mind now because there's a guy right there next to you where you've got to step on the defender. You're going over here. The goalkeeper's in a good position, but maybe you could hit the top corner over here, hit it across his body and get to the bottom corner over here. But also there's this third thing you can do, which is this guy over here that's running alongside you. And just adding that decision to the number of decisions you have to make in split seconds, I think there's a certain amount of figuring out what the best decisions are, and there's always the moment where you're where players are also trying to not to make a wrong decision, and I think that's especially true for Oluwaseyi because he's a young guy and he's still trying to develop that, where he doesn't want to make the wrong call either, and that is problematic when you're trying to make the right decision. So I think there's just a little bit of figuring out. I'm not, your question was, am I worried? No, I'm not worried about it. I think they both have a lot of talent. I think it's just a matter of developing that muscle memory for playing with another guy who's there for you.
Kyle?
I definitely agree. I think the two of them, once they figure that out, it's going to be great to watch because I think the skill sets they bring are different enough that it works to have them next to each other. Like they both can get out wide and bring it in, but they bring it in differently. You know, Kelvin's got some more foot skills. He might try to beat somebody one-on-one. Tanny's going to look for a pass. He's going to look to cross it in if he's out wide. Or like against Columbus last year, he's just going to shoot it from an impossible angle, and nobody else is going to think to do that. Uh, I like that he's willing to have a hit from just about anywhere. As soon as it gets, we get the sliders in a little bit and it's on target, I think he's going to be right back where he was last year.
Yeah, I'm encouraged from what I've seen. I know the goals aren't flowing in, but I feel like there's you're starting to see it as I think as Eric Ramsey said, teething problem. And I think, as you pointed out, John, it's a good way of describing it. It's going to be a process of getting those two comfortable up top together. A couple other questions off of this game. Robin Lod in the starting lineup, Will Trapp out of the starting lineup. Eric Ramsey saying just wanted to rotate the squad. That's something that they're going to be more conscious of this year because of all the other factors that will come into this season. They want to be able to rotate their squad. It was nothing more than that because Will Trapp did play pretty well against LAFC. How do we think that changed up the dynamic in the midfield? Because I think it might have opened up some things for Joaquin Pereira, who I think had a little bit better of a game than he did against LAFC, Kyle.
Yeah, I liked with Dotson, that's kind of the pivot there, and Robin kind of drifting right, Pereira drifting left. I thought it was a good balance, and I thought Montreal was a perfect team to rotate those three in against. They didn't put a lot of pressure in the middle there, so Lod and Pereira just kind of got to drift as they saw fit, and we didn't really need two people in the middle, Trapp and Dotson, holding down there.
John, how do you think Robin Lod did in that midfield trio?
I mean, Robin Lod is one of those guys, to me, part of the reason he's perpetually underrated, or we just assume he's perpetually underrated, is he doesn't look, he's one of those players that doesn't obviously do anything until he does something amazing. You know what I mean? He's just not noticeable. And then you go back and you're like, oh, I think Lod made the pass. And you go back and watch the replay and I was like, did he nutmeg two guys and the ball looped over? How did this happen? Like it was actually magical, but it didn't look magical at the time. And I somehow I don't know if it's the body type or what, but he just does not, he does not jump off the page like maybe an Emmanuel Reynoso going back a couple of years would have, where you're like, oh, I see all of the magic that's happening there. And then you see the things that Lod does. And it's like, well, maybe, oh, I guess that was a really cool thing that he did. I think the way the Loons have played so far is not really the things that you expect out of sort of those attacking midfielders of, oh, this guy is going to be a creative magician. Blah, blah. It does, the way the Loons play doesn't really give them the ball in the midfield and be like, all right, you're going to beat two guys and make an amazing pass to spring a goal. It's more like advance the ball forward and we're going to advance as a team and stuff like that. So some of those skills, some of those things that you would expect to see out of an attacking midfielder, whether it's Pereira or Lod, I think you look at them and go, well, they're not doing the things that I would expect. And so you really have to dive down deep and be like, well, Pereira pressed really well. And okay, you can argue about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing when you're judging an attacking midfielder, where if you're down to going something like, well, he stayed on his feet almost the entire game and he was friendly to his teammates. It's, well, maybe we're giving him too much credit for little things now.
Hey, you still want to see that. Still want to see that.
Oh, yeah. Kyle's like, don't you dare denigrate someone for being friendly to their teammates. That's the most important thing.
Final note on this match, unless you guys have anything else after this. Penalty or not, you've had a couple days to now look back at it. It was originally ruled a penalty. They went to VAR, waved off the penalty. Unclear from the ref's decision point and what they said about it, but I know we've all kind of gone back and looked at it a million times. We've seen the league, and I think Andrew Weeby's explanation of it, that there might have been a little toe poke at the end before the initial contact. I don't know. When I think back on the game, I think it's still a penalty, but I don't know. I could go either way, I guess. But John, I'll start with you. Penalty or not?
All I can say is that VAR is really working well, given that we had a 5-minute break and everybody got to go look at it on a monitor, and there's still no clarity of whether it was a penalty. Just have the referee, it would have been fine. Just have the referee call it. This is dumb.
Kyle?
I think I always get confused in this situation where they call it a penalty initially, and then when they overturn it, they don't give the yellow card to the person that for like diving or simulation.
Right.
either it was a foul or it wasn't. Somebody's going to get a yellow here. Uh, I don't know. And then when they overturn it and don't give him a yellow, I'm like, well, you just don't know what happened. So you're just going to try to erase this from ever happening.
Now you're like, oh no, I made a decision that affects the game and I regret it.
Exactly.
The ref should have to announce, I regret that we got into this situation and I would like it not to have happened. No foul.
Yeah, I think when you put it that way, it really did feel like with the game where it was at that point, it was 0-0 at the time, and this happened just before the goal, essentially. It felt like one of those decisions and moments where the ref's like, this is going to change the impact of the game, and I don't want to be the reason that it happens. I want this to be because the players on the field and not because of my decision. And they waved it off, and thankfully it ended up not mattering because the Loons would go on to score shortly after. But it really did feel, as you kind of put it there, it was one of those moments where the ref's like, this is the impact, this is going to impact the game more than I want it to, and didn't want that. And it's like, that's not how you should be reffing games. You should be reffing games based off
if
of
you're going to be a
you've seen on the
top
field.
level referee, you have to have the confidence and personality to ruin a game. That's a ridiculous way of putting it, but you have to be able to be comfortable with making a decision that will cause one team to maybe win and one team to maybe lose. That's just the way it is. You can't go back and be like, everyone stop looking at me. They're all eyes are on me and I don't like this. That's bad refereeing.
All eyes have been on me for the past 5 minutes as I've sat by the VAR monitor.
As I've held my finger to my ear. I will say this about that penalty. If that's not in the penalty area, that's given as a foul 100 times out of 100 and nobody says anything. So I feel like that should tell you something about whether it's a penalty or not.
Yeah. Kyle, you were going to say something there?
I was going to say our eyes are only on the ref when we're mad. So, like, I don't know. I was a ref when I was like 15 and I got yelled at by a U12 coach up and down the sideline telling me I was a coward. So like it's not a great gig.
Listen, coaches of the world, if you're yelling at a ref in an under 12 game that he's a coward, consider your life choices.
If you're yelling at a 15-year-old that he's a coward.
Stop it.
That's wow. I'm sorry that you went through that.
You're ruining the world. People who are yelling at refs in under 12 games, you're ruining the world. Knock it off. I don't care how bad they are.
Kyle could have been a top level referee. We never know.
That's right.
That U12 coach ruined him.
If I had VAR, I'd be a top level referee right now.
Any final notes from you guys on this match before we move on to previewing San Jose? Nothing? All right. Let's jump into this one. A game between two teams that avoid possession as much as they can. We've got, I believe, according to FBRF, Minnesota has allowed teams to have 65% of the possession, and San Jose, through their first two games, have allowed teams to have 65.5% of the possession. So who's going to hold the ball in this match, Kyle?
I think the Loons are more stubborn. So I think San Jose is going to get frustrated, and they're going to end up having the ball.
John, I know you're looking forward to a match where both teams prefer to counterattack and don't prefer to have the ball.
I mean, part of that early in the season, part of that San Jose won their first game 4-0. So you look at their stats from that game, and you can throw a little bit out because of the game state. But it certainly is. I can't imagine the Earthquakes being like, you know what? I think we will take 75% of the ball in this game. What we want is to spread out our team as much as possible around the pitch and just kick the. We want to go full Matias Almeida again. We're bringing back the Almeida days, and we want one player in every part of the pitch at all times, whether we have the ball or not. We're just going to have zones like it's netball.
So San Jose start their season a 4-0 win, as you said, over Real Salt Lake, and then a 2-1 win over Sporting Kansas City, even though they had Hernan Lopez sent off due to a second yellow in the 52nd minute. So he'll miss this game coming up on Saturday night, late Saturday night. Got some MLS After Dark action for those MLS sickos who really enjoy MLS After Dark. I'm sure we will as well. What do we think of San Jose's start? I mean, I know we've mentioned it a little bit, getting the 2 wins, being one of the teams that have 6 points through 2 games, but you look at their competition. Real Salt Lake struggled that first week. Would they get the win in the second week, if I'm remembering correct?
Yeah, they beat Seattle last week.
They beat Seattle last week. So I know there's been some questions about Real Salt Lake and what they can do because of the attacking issues that they have, or the lack of attacking threat that they have. And then Sporting Kansas City, as we've seen through the first handful of games, are just not good. I think it's fair to say that they are it's going to be a long season for Sporting Kansas City fans. What do we think of San Jose? Again, small sample size, so I'm putting you on the spot here. Is it real, or is it just Bruce Arena pulling a rabbit out of his hat through the first 2 games, Kyle?
I think they've capitalized on the excitement of all the new stuff, and Martinez and Chicho are both they're real strikers. Like they're going to be in the place they need to be to finish off a move. So if they can get the ball up there to them, they're going to finish some. I mean, they've got good finishes in them, but a lot of it's going to be like a tap in from chaos or something like that, just being in the right place. And I think so far they've played against teams that have let them get the ball where they need to. And I think the Loons will be the first real compact, organized defense that they'll come up against. And I think a lot of it will come down to Christian Espinoza and I think it's Jamar Ricketts on the other side. If they're going to be able to get service in from the outsides. I'm not sure if they will, but I know Espinoza is extremely talented, and I'm always rooting for MLS Super Draft picks. So I hope Ricketts has a good career, even if this Saturday doesn't go well.
Well, now we found out why Kyle's a big Morris Duggan fan. MLS Super Draft pick.
Well, yeah.
Because he's a super draft sicko. Man, that is a special level of MLS sicko to be a super draft sicko. I love it.
There are levels to this game, and being an MLS Super Draft sicko may be the top of the level, or the top level here. This one, John. Yep. What do you expect to see from San Jose, John, or in this match? Because, as we said, neither team likes possession based off of the way they played through the first 2 games. How do you think Minnesota changes their approach on Saturday, if at all?
I mean, I think what you've seen from Minnesota over really Eric Ramsey's entire tenure is that they're not going to change their approach. It doesn't matter how many times you ask, do you think this is the game that maybe you'll try to pass the ball? The answer is no. We're going to do what we think we're good at, and the thing that gives us the best chance to win. And as the way Ramsey always puts it is, if you try to be everything, you'll be nothing. And I'm getting the sense that that's his way of saying, no, we're not going to do that. Stop asking about that. I think Kyle hit the nail on the head to highlight Espinoza, especially as somebody to watch and San Jose's wingers to watch, because Minnesota likes to stake them back defensively. And so San Jose, to move the ball down the field, is probably going to have to go wide. And so it's going to be very important to see how those wide players can get the ball into the area for San Jose. So I guess we'll see. And Espinoza is one of those guys that every time you play San Jose, it's like, oh, I forgot about Espinoza. He's really good. He's like the 3rd guy on an NBA team where you remember the big names, and then I forgot about that guy. That guy can actually play. This is very annoying.
Yeah, because he had double-digit assists last year, but you never heard about it because San Jose was so bad in general. He was essentially their only offense, and now that they are, it seems like through the first 2 games, good. He's got a couple assists already this season, and he has a lot more attacking talent to distribute the ball to this season than he did last season in Chicho Arango and Joseph Martinez. Chicho Arango, as we said, and Joseph Martinez up top for San Jose. A pair of big changes for San Jose this season. Outside of Espinoza and Chicho and Joseph, who are the guys that you're watching this week? I know you already said, Kyle, Jamar Ricketts, because you're MLS Super Draft sicko. John, who's outside of those?
I want to be part of the Super Draft sickos. I want to be in on the Ricketts train.
All right, you're on the Ricketts.
I want to be like Kyle.
Well, if you want to be on the Super Draft train, there's also Bo LaRue.
Yes, I love it. A guy I've never heard of before right now. I'm all in on that guy. What was his name?
Bo LaRue. He went to
Bo LaRue. I love it. Great name.
Great name.
Name out loud, so I hope that's how you say it.
It's just a great name. I mean,
is that one name or is that 2 names? Like, is he a Brazilian guy and his name is Bo LaRue?
The full name, John, is let's see, Bo Matthew Lovey LaRue.
Oh man, what a great name!
He's gonna be a star.
I've with a name like that, how can he not be?
And he didn't have to transplant far because he's from San Jose State, so literally right in the area. So
local angle, I love it.
There you go. Minnesota's always looking for the local angles.
Yes. Does he have a grandma in Minnesota? That would be perfect.
I'll look into it. I'll get back to you on that.
Please do. If he does, that's the whole story.
All right. Before we close out discussion of this match, your guys' keys to the match, if you will. How are the Loons going to come away with 3 points on the road, get their first road win of the season, get their second win of the row in a row, and hand San Jose their first loss of the season? Kyle, I'll start with you.
We've said it before. I think just kind of they're going to stay the course, and I think as long as they confidently do what they've shown they're capable of in the first 2 games, stay compact, look for the right opportunities, play with purpose forward, I think they'll be able to get the win here.
John?
I mean, in terms of Minnesota's success, I think a lot comes down to Oluwaseyi and Yeboah and just finishing. They're going to have chances. They're going to, the way Minnesota's set up, it's going to create 3, 4, 5 big chances, and whether they finish those or not is going to be the difference. It was the difference against LAFC. If they had scored 1 or 2 of the ones that they had in the first 15 minutes, we might be sitting here talking about Minnesota as one of the teams that has 6 points this season. So it really feels like it's going to come down to those big moments. And, you can say that about every soccer game ever played, that it comes down to those big moments. But I think it's true of Minnesota in terms of their success, of whether they take those chances, whether they don't take those chances. And, whether they get something off of a throw in like they did in the last game, or another set piece, a corner, something like that. It's just those little moments become magnified. I don't think it's going to be I don't think the battle between Minnesota and San Jose is going to be a referendum on the state of either franchise. Like, this way of playing is clearly better than this way of playing, as shown by this. I think it's just going to be little things.
Over under on how many gallivanting 40-yard runs up the middle of the field Michael Boxall takes this weekend. What's it, 2? Over under at 2? 2.5?
There's nothing I wish more for that guy than one 40-yard screamer after a run through the middle of the defense.
Yes.
There's just, and I feel like he would actually, if he scored, he would just retire on the spot. You know what I mean? Like running to Seller, he just runs up the stands, and you're like, I think he's gone. We got a sub for him. I think he might have just ended his career right there, because it's never going to get any better.
Love it. I'm looking forward to this one, even though it is starting late. We've got a 9:30 kickoff, 9 p.m. pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself over on 1500 ESPN. You can watch that one as well on MLS Season Pass. Guys, before we send you off into the Minnesota day, your strategies for staying up late for MLS After Dark. Coffee, nap, energy drink. What's your strategy for staying up late for MLS After Dark this weekend? Kyle, I'll start with you.
Recently become a coffee person. I had my 10th cup of coffee this week. In my entire life. So.
Oh,
no, not all at once.
Counting your number of cups of coffee this week?
No, 10 cups.
Already 10 on Thursday.
I counted. Now I'm off of the 2 hands. I got to get more hands to count, but we're going to
10 cups of coffee today, and I can see the future. Tell me, you guys have been moving in slow motion this whole podcast.
Will you guys talk faster, please?
Yes. Why are you guys talking so slow?
John,
my strategy for late night games is sheer grumpiness. Just pure dad grumpiness, where it's like, oh, stupid West Coast, blah, blah, blah. And that sustains me till midnight or whatever, when everything's over.
So make sure to have John's Twitter feed on for the game, or Blue Sky feed on for the game, because it will be enjoyable as always. It's one of the feeds I have to turn off, otherwise you'll hear me cackling on air. So I have to turn his feed off during the game, otherwise his commentary it'll make me stop doing my job. So looking forward to it.
The goal of social media is to make exactly 3 people laugh. No more, no fewer. You want 3 laughs.
3.
That's my only goal.
Looking forward to it, guys. Should be a fun one. Saturday night, 9:30 kickoff for that one between Minnesota United and San Jose on MLS Season Pass. Join Dan Terra and myself for pre-match show and the broadcast itself at 9 p.m. on 1500 ESPN and the Score North mobile app. Looking forward to it, and we'll be back next week to preview a game at Kansas City, a team that we've mentioned a couple times here early on this season. We'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that next week, and we'll talk to you guys next week as well. Loons fans, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.